So I'm creating a resource now on Data Factory. So let me click on Data Factory. Let me click on create. The subscription I'm using pay as you go. I have one subscription. Resource group. Just now I created a new resource group called project. Name. Even I can give any name. So I'll give ADF NLY project. Yeah, this should work. And the region we are taking as the East US because I want to keep all my resources under this resource group in one region, because if I keep it in one region there will be low latency. So I'll not doing any git configurations now, not changing any networking. I'm not going for the advanced and tags. Let me click on review plus create. So it will validate and everything is everything is okay. Validation will pass and then you can create a resource on Azure Data Factory. So let me go back and you can see we have just now deployed an ADLS. So the important thing is when you are creating a storage account, you need to enable hierarchical namespace, that is in the advanced option. So once you click on that, your storage account will be your ADLS. So you can just see in your project, you will be having storage account and you will be getting a data factory also. Yeah, I think it will get deployed here in couple of minutes. So let me go to your storage account and here you can see we have a containers. Yeah, so you can see hierarchical namespace is enabled. So what does it mean? So you can create a folders inside your containers. In blob storage you cannot do. So I'll just create a first container here and I'll call this as a raw data. I'll call this as a raw data. So we are pulling the data or the tables from our database MySQL and we are storing that into our raw container. And from here we are again pulling it into our Azure Databricks and we are again writing that into a new layer or new container that will be a bronze layer, silver layer and the gold layer. Yeah, so this is what architecture we are following. So we are pulling a data from MySQL to data lake using an Azure Data Factory. So we have deployed two resources. One is Azure Data Factory and second is Azure Data Lake. So with the help of Azure Data Factory, I'm going to pull all the tables in one pipeline from MySQL to Azure Data Lake that will be in the storage container raw. So inside that raw you can create a directory here. You can create a directory and you can just say that these are tables and you can just save it. So if you are using a blob storage, you will not be able to create a directory in this way. This is possible only if your storage account is your ADLS. It means hierarchical namespace is enabled in this. So let me go to my resource group and let me quickly refresh, and here you can see we got two resources. As we can see in our project we are using two resources, then we are going for the Azure Databricks. So first let us bring all our tables from MySQL to data lake and then we'll go for the second part, that is from data lake we are going to use Databricks and then proceed further to Microsoft's Power BI. So let me open my ADF. Let me click on launch. Yeah, so we are in our data factory now. As we have discussed in detail, now I want to pull the data from MySQL. So let me open it, MySQL. So when I say MySQL, it is a database which is on premises, which is in on premises. So when you are pulling a data or extracting the data from on premises, you need, okay, I need this service name and username, so let me keep it as it is. I'll cancel out this. So when you are pulling from on premises to the cloud, we need an integration runtime that is self-hosted. By default you will have the integration runtime of Azure. Yeah, you can check on this integration runtime. So whenever you are setting up an Azure Data Factory, by default you will have an Azure integration runtime. But when you are connecting it with your on premises, you need to set up a new integration runtime. You can do it from here, or we will follow a step. So what I'll do, just give me 1 second. I'll open my whiteboard to explain you. Yeah, so what we are doing here, so here you have your database called MySQL, and we are using an Azure Data Factory here, like ADF, and we are going to store that in our storage account in this way. Okay, so I'll call this as a storage account, or you can call this as a ADLS. So first and the foremost component what we are going to build is the connection. So we are building a connection from MySQL to ADF. So we call it as a link service. We are linking a service from MySQL to ADF, and the second link service will be from ADF to your storage account or ADLS. So we are going to first create a link service in our ADF. So when you are creating a link service, it will be simple. If you are connecting to your storage account, you are linking it with the storage account, it becomes simple because it is in the cloud. But when you are connecting to MySQL, that is on premises, you need to have a integration runtime. So for MySQL, you need to set up an integration runtime, that is your self-hosted integration runtime. But for the second, when you are connecting with your storage account, or you can call it as a ADLS, you don't need anything. That will work because by default Azure Data Factory is giving us one integration runtime, that is Azure integration runtime, that will work. So first we are going to create link services, and then we are going to create a data set. So what dataset is? Dataset will reference, or to it will point to the sources, or it will point to the tables which are there in your MySQL. So we need to create a dataset for first again MySQL, and second for your storage account, that is ADLS. So after we create a link services, after we create a dataset, then we are going to create a pipeline. The third step will be creating a pipeline, so that will move in pipeline. We are using one activity. So what is pipeline? Pipeline is nothing but it is a group of activities. In this we are using one activity called as a copy activity. It will move all your data, or it will copy all your data from MySQL to ADLS. But there is a small glitch here, because in MySQL there is one database, and in that database there are many tables. So when you are creating a pipeline, you need to look at some activities. You need to think on the logic, like how to move all your tables from that database to the ADLS in one pipeline. So we are going to see that also. So now let us start with creating a link service with the self-hosted integration runtime. So let me minimize this. Now let me come to link services. You can create a link service from here. You can go to author. You can start creating a data set directly. When you are creating a data set, it will ask you to create a link service. You can do link services from here also. But let us do from here. Go to the manage tab and go to the link services. Click on creating a link service, and from here I'm going to pick my SQL. Let me search it here. MySQL. Yeah, it is MySQL. Let me click on OK and continue. So you can just give a good name. So I'm just using a link service from MySQL. You can just take MySQL, and it is asking me for the connect via integration runtime. This is auto resolve, but I need a new integration runtime. So let me click on new, and it will ask you for the integration runtime setup. So I'll just click on self-hosted. So what self-hosted will do, you can see, use this for running activities in on premises. So that's why I'm using a self-hosted. And Azure, so it is used for data movement, data flow, pipeline activities for serverless compute in Azure. So if you are using a services Azure, you need to choose this one. but now we are using an on premises, so I'm going for self-hosted. So it is asking me for the name for that integration runtime, so I'll just call this as a self-hosted integration runtime and click on, yeah, click on create. Yeah, so once you click on create, so it will ask you two options. One is your express setup, you can set up by yourself, or you can manual express setup is, it will, if you click here, it will express setup for this computer, or if you want to set up manually, you can go for manual setup also, where you can install the integration runtime manually, download it, and then you can install it. So let me check the first option, express setup. Let me click on that. So I have already installed my self-hosted integration runtime. You can see it is in my PC already. So but what you can do is you can just click on download. So integration runtime, self-hosted integration runtime will be download, and you can install it from here. Yeah, now let me click on start the service. Let me click on start the service. So it is connecting to our cloud service, that is data factory. Yeah, you can see by default, by automatically it has picked up the integration runtime name, that is what I have given. If you remember, I have given the integration runtime 1, and this node is my laptop name, that is desktop 4M510 KA is my laptop name. So my integration runtime self-hosted has been connected to the cloud service. I had my self-hosted integration runtime, I have uninstalled it and now I'm installing it again. So you can go for the first option, that is express setup. Click on that, you will get one link. You just open it, click on yes, and now automatically the self-hosted will be downloaded for you. Yeah, so it has downloaded, now it is installing. Let us wait for a few minutes. Yeah, now it is registering, connect to your cloud service. Yeah, so you can see we got a note here that self integration runtime self-hosted, that is integration runtime 1 is successfully installed on your computer. So let me close this, let me close. Yeah, I think we are done with the setup. Let me close this and let me do a refresh now. Yeah, now you got a green color here, so it means that we have connected our uh, like we can able to take a self-hosted integration runtime for connecting your MySQL. Now it is asking me for the server name. So you need to put a server name and you need to put a database name and the username and the password. So for that I need to open my MySQL. So let me open MySQL workbench. Yeah. So when I click on OK here you can see your server name. You can copy this server name. So that will be your localhost 3006. Yeah. So here, while giving a server name, it should be just a local host. Local host. So let me minimize this, cancel out this. It should be just a local host. Local host. Okay. Local host. And the port is by default. Now it is asking me for the database name. We will come to this database name in a minute. It is asking me for the username. So username by default it will be root. You can see root, and password is, in my case I have set one password. I'll show you that password. Yeah, and it is asking me your schema name, or you can call it as a database name. The database is your classic models. So let me minimize this, and here the database name will be classic models, classic models. Yes, it is classic models, and username is root. And let me take my password, what I have set it. So let me keep it. Yeah, after this password I'll just set this S SL mode for the required. Okay, you need to set this for the required, and you need to use the use system trust store. That's it. After this, you just need to click on test connection to check whether your connection was successfully built with MySQL. Yeah, so we got a connection name, connection successful, and you can see here. So I have taken the database name, username, password, and let me click on create. So we have now created only one link services, that is from your MySQL to your link services of MySQL. Okay, so let me take one by one. So we have done this. Now let me proceed further to create a second link services for my ADLS account. So second step is to create a second link service, but that is a cloud based. It is very simple. I am selecting my ADLS Gen 2 link service for my ADLS. So you can see, you can find it here, ADLS Gen 2. Let me click on continue. So by default, it will pick up the integration runtime as an Azure, or it is also called as an auto resolve integration runtime. And subscription, I'll pick up a subscription. I have two subscriptions. I'll be picking up the first one. And by default, the storage account is my SANLY. So let me show you. I'll just come to the Microsoft Azure here, and here you can see your storage account name, that is SANLY. Let me come to the DF, my data factory, and you can select your storage account name, and you can test the connection. Yeah, the connection was successfully built. So let me click on create. So we have created the second link service also. So we have done with two link services. Now let me go to the author tab here, and let me start creating a data set. So let me click on create a new data set, and here I'm going to click on MySQL as my database first data set. Let me click on OK, and I'm picking up the link service of MySQL. Then it is asking you the table names here. It will take some time to fetch all the table names inside that database. Inside that database. Can you see here, guys? When I click on table names, you can fetch, like you can work on a particular table. There are 8 tables. So let me do it for one table. I'll show you how you can do for one table, and then we can see how we can go for multiple tables. Are you getting? Okay, directly we'll go for creating for like all the tables. I'll not select single table, so I'll just keep it none and click on OK. Okay, so this is your data set, and here you can see it is not selected any of the table. We have not selected any of the table. Let me click on edit, and here I'll write a query here. I'll write a query that will fetch all the tables. So here I'll write, give me a second. Yeah, guys, so what I'll do now, so instead of picking up one particular table, so I want all the tables, so I'll just add a parameter here. I'll take a new parameter called as a table name. So I'll pick up a parameter called as a table name, and I'll keep that as a string type, and I'll not pass any default value for now. And when I come to a connection here, I'll just add a dynamic content for that table. So it should be in this way, at the rate I'm using a data set. dot, I'm passing a parameter, that is your table name, a parameter as a table name, and click on OK. So you need to do this settings when you are creating a data set. So this will fetch the dataset name and the table name. So there are 8 tables, so it will give you dataset name dot table name respectively. So this is how we create one dataset. Okay, so this is dataset for MySQL. So let me go and create a new dataset for your ADLS. Okay, let me write storage account, or let me just scroll down. You may find it somewhere here, that is ADLS Gen 2. Let me click on OK. Now, in which format do you want that tables to be converted? Very important. So you can get a CSV file or you can get a JSON file, but when you are working with a big data analytics, most of the time we convert that tables to a part files or a Parquet files. Let me click on continue. So I'm giving a name as part only, or you can call it as a Parquet file. Now I'm picking up a link service, that is Azure Data Lake Storage. It is asking me where do you want to store that? Do you have any specific path? Yeah, you can just open browse it. So I have a container called raw. Inside that raw container, I have a directory called tables, and click on OK. So by default, it will take the file path raw and the directory as tables. So after this, let me click on OK. So we have created two data sets. Let me go back. Yeah, yes, we have created a link service. We have created two data sets, MySQL and for ADLS. Now let me focus on the pipeline part. Yeah, so we are converting to the Parquet file. So just try to understand, from MySQL datasets we are converting to the part file. We have not saved it anything, so if you want to save it you can just publish it, but once we create a pipeline we'll publish all at one go. Okay, so now let us go for creating a pipeline. So I'm just clicking on a create a new pipeline. Yeah. So here if I just use a copy data activity, you will be copying only one table at a time. So for 8 tables, you have to use 8 different pipelines, but that is not recommended. But you can do all that in one go. So here you need to apply some logic here. So first you need to, so if you remember, we have created one data set. That data set in ADLS, I have taken it as a Parquet file, but there is an issue with this Parquet file. So we will change this Parquet file to a CSV file. Why? Why we are changing the Parquet file to CSV? We will talk about that, because the reason is, when you are working on ADF and when you want to convert it to the Parquet file, in Parquet file you don't need, or uh, it should not contain any columns with a space. Suppose if you have any column with a space, it will not convert to a Parquet file. So that's why I am just changing my one of the dataset from ADLS to CSV. And if you remember the logic in the pipeline, what we have done, so first we have taken a lookup activity. So what does lookup activity do? So lookup is, as the name itself indicates, look up. So what it will do, it will just list down all the tables. What we are doing, we are just, in one pipeline we are just copying all your tables, all tables. So lookup means it will just list down all the tables name. Suppose there are 8 to 10 tables in your database, it will list down all the 8 to 10 tables in your lookup. So once your lookup activity is done, you need to go for the second activity, that is for each. Now what for each is doing, as in the programming language we use a for. How we write a for code here, like if you are in Python, we write for I in some sequence. It might be sequence, or it might be string, or it might be range, or something like that. Similarly, what does this I do? Now I is a variable. It will fetch each and every element from this range. Suppose if I write range of 5, so there will be 5 elements, 0 comma 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4. this I will fetch each and every element, each and every element, each and every element. Similarly, here I need to take one variable, like one variable. I'll take one variable, and that variable I'll pick it each and every row from here, each and every row. That is nothing but each and every table from this lookup. So I'll be picking each and every table from this lookup, and I'll run this for loop for 8 to 10 times. There are 10 tables in that, so it will run 10 times, and inside this for each, so it will pick one table and it should start copying it, and you need a sync here, so inside for each we are using a one more activity called as a copy activity. So we are using a lookup activity to list down. So I'll just write down here, we are using lookup for just listing down the tables in the database. So lookup is to list down all the tables, all tables, and we are fetching for each to pull every table from the lookup, so this for loop should run 7, 8, 9, 10 times depending on how many tables do we have. So it will pull every table at a one element. It will pull first table, and then your table should be copied. I'm using a copy activity. So here is a small twist. Here we have a small twist. In lookup, we are using a dataset of MySQL. So we have created a MySQL. In MySQL, we have created it by using a self-hosted integration runtime. So this data set is used only to list down all the tables in the lookup. So when you are using a for each again, in for each, here you need to take a different data set. Why you need to take a data set? Because in this data set I have to take a variable. I need to take a variable. If you are aware of how the for loop works in Python or any other programming language, we take a variable there for I in. Similarly, for this for each activity, I want to take a variable. To set this variable, I am taking a new data set here. That new data set will point to say my MySQL only with a self-hosted integration runtime only. Okay, so I'll just recap all these things. So first we are using a lookup activity. Lookup activity will just list down all the tables from your database. Once this activity succeed, it will go for each. So what does for each do? It will fetch each and every record from this lookup table, and it will start copying it. So while doing this, here we have set up a data set that is called as a MySQL, and in that we have used a database called as a classic model. So it will list down all the table names here. And when you are doing a for each, we are not using a same data set. We are getting a new data set that is again MySQL, but here I am passing a variable inside this. And in my sync side, I am pointing my dataset to a CSV file, not a Parquet file. Why not a Parquet file? Because Parquet file is actually a very good, because it reduces a lot of your size, and it is a compression one. That is all okay about Parquet. But in ADF, when you are converting into a Parquet file, you need all your columns in these table should be without space, without any character. But in ADF it doesn't work. You need to remove all that, you need to alias all that. So it becomes difficult to write it into the Parquet. That's why we are changing it from Parquet to CSV. But if you want to save that in a Parquet, so we will go further in Databricks and solve it. let us do all this in the hands-on now. Let me go back. Now I have what I'll do, I'll start creating a pipeline now. I'll start creating a new pipeline. Okay. So whatever I have explained, I'll do everything. So first I'll take up a lookup table. So I'll take up an activity called lookup. What lookup will do? Lookup will just list down all the tables inside my lookup activity. It will just give you all the tables. So in lookup, let me close this. Yeah. So it is asking you for the name. I'll keep it as it is. Coming to settings, it is asking me for the data set. So let me go here, and the data set what I have created is MySQL table 1. So now here you need to, if you choose a table, if you choose a table, it will fetch only one table, but I don't want that one table. I want a query. So I'm writing a query here. So what type of query? So I'll come to my MySQL, and here I have a query written with me. You can see. So what I have done, it is a same simple SQL query. Select the table name. So table name, I'm taking a column name from the information schema, from the schema dot tables, where the table schema, that is table database, is your classic model. So if I execute this here, see what is happening. This is your MySQL and I'm executing it. You can see all your table names here, that is inside the classic models. Here you can see all the tables and you are getting the output. So I'll take the same query, I'll take a same query and paste it here. Paste it here. Now I'll check the output for this. If I click on preview data, you'll get a output for this lookup. What output we want, we can see it by using this preview data. Okay, so just give me 1 second. Yeah, now we are getting a table name. You can see here, you are getting a table name and you are getting only one row. I mean, you can see only one row. The reason is you need to cancel out this. You don't need to select, or by default it is enabled. You need to disable this. That is first row only. You need to remove this and just click on preview data again. And let us see the output. Yeah, now you can see you got all 10 tables. So what the lookup activity is doing, your lookup activity is just listing down all your 10 tables. Now I want to pick each and every table from here. I want to pick each and every table and run 10 times. So for that I need a for loop for each. So let me close this. Now come to the activity. I'll pick up for each activity and put it here in a pipeline. Okay. So after this lookup activity gets succeeded, I want to run your for each. I want to run this for each. But in your for each, if you go to the settings, if you go to your settings, it is asking you for the items. Hey, what do you want exactly in this? So it is asking you this property should be parameterized. So I'll just parameterize this by clicking on this and adding a dynamic content on this. So when you are using an expression builder in the pipeline expression builder, it will show you some suggestions here. You can see what I want a lookup value array. We are going to select this array. The reason is because these all elements are of same type. It's all tables. So I want to fetch each and every element from that. So I am picking up the array of row data. So once you click it, automatically an expression builder is writing an expression for you. It is showing that okay, you are taking one activity, that is lookup activity, and your output will be dot value. So you need to take the value array array because all the tables are of same element, so that's why we're taking an array. So let me click on OK. Okay, so then after you selecting the items from the lookup, you need to then copy that particular table and put it into your sink. So for that you need to take one activity inside a for each. That activity is nothing but your copy activity. Now you need to pay attention here. When you are taking a copy activity, it is very simple. We all know that we just use source and sink. Let me put a source here. Here, as I have told you, when you are taking a copy activity here, we need to take a different data set, not the same data set, because this data set is listing you the values for lookup, and this data set should copy it by using a variable. So we did not set any variable for this data set, so that's the reason why we are creating one more data set for this copy activity. So I have already created it, but let us create it again. Let me go new, and it is MySQL. Let me create on MySQL. Let me click on create link service. It will be your link service of MySQL. It is loading the table names. It is loading the table names, but I don't need any table name because we are just fetching all the tables. We are fetching all the tables, so we don't need anything here. Let me click on OK. So we have created a new data set. Now let me open this. Let me open this, and in this data set I want, like, I am not looking for a single table. I am looking for a dynamic. So let me add a dynamic content for this. Now I need to add a parameter here. So that parameter would be, let me write it here, that is at the rate data set. Now let me first add a parameter here. That parameter is your table name. So I'm just pulling it from here. You can see table name. That is your table name. So I'll come to this connection, and here I'll add, yeah, if you select here, you will get each and every table, all 10 table names. But I don't want to do it one by one. I want to add a dynamic content on that. So let me click on this dynamic content, and here I'm going to select at the rate dot data set dot your table name. By default it is coming here, it is showing the intelligence. Then click on this, click on OK. So we are doing this in your data set. So we want to data set, you can say data set dot table name. Now I want to pass this in my pipeline number 3. So let me go on the pipeline number 3, and in the source I have taken the MySQL table. Here you can see MySQL table 3. Just now we have used MySQL table 3 with this variable called as a table name. Why we are taking a variable, I have explained you. You can see we have taken a variable because we want to, we are using a for each in that, so we are using a variable called a table name. Now coming to the sync side, just now we have discussed, if you are taking a Parquet file, it will fail because in Parquet it is like your column name should not contain any spaces. That's the reason why you cannot, you get an error when you take a Parquet file. But let me take a CSV. So I have just selected the delimited, that is CSV file. So if you just open this CSV file, very simple, I have just created a data set with the same raw and tables. Yeah, let us go to the pipeline here. Now we have set the sync, we have set the source in the copy activity. Let me go to the pipeline here. You can see lookup. If lookups succeed, it will go and run the for each. Let us see whether everything is correct or not by just validating it. So if I validate here, it is showing you one error here. It is saying that no value provided for parameter table name. Yeah, so we need to provide a value here. value here in the source of the copy data. So click here and go to the dynamic content, and here by default it is showing you which will be the source for this copy data. That will be the for each. Just now we are running for each. It will fetch each and every element and it will start copying it. So you need to provide. Okay, how did I get the error? You can see I go to validate. It is showing you there is no value provided. When I click on this, it is showing you the output here. I mean, you need to provide a value here inside a table name. So just click on the dynamic, click on this dynamic content, and once you click on that, by default it is showing you, okay, do you want to pass the for each, that is current item. So just click on it and it will show you that it will pull out each item, and you need to just add dot table name after that. Table name, that is a variable what we have assigned in the data set. Let me just click on OK, and now let me validate this. So once I validate this, now your pipeline is validated. There are no errors. Now there are no errors here. Let me click on close, and let me start with the debug. Now once I click on this debug, then your Apache Spark cluster starts behind the scene. So now let me click on this debug to check the output. So I've clicked on debug. You can come to the pipeline here and you can come to the output and see the output here. Meanwhile, I'll just show you our raw container. So in the raw container, in your tables, you do not have anything here. You can see there is nothing here. Now we should get all the CSV files in the table directory. Now you can see lookup is succeeded. Lookup activity is succeeded. Now your tables are moving from lookup to for each. It is in progress. You can see it is in progress, and you can see it is getting copy data 1, copy data 2. So if for each is perfectly working fine, it will proceed further to copy each and every table. You can see you got all 10 records, each and every record. Yeah, you can see that, and I hope you can see the output here. You are getting succeed here. Still your for loop is running. Maybe few tables have copied it and few tables are still running, depending upon like how many rows are there in that table. Yeah, I think everything has succeeded now. So what does it mean? Let me go back to my raw container, and let me go to the table here, that is directory or a folder, and now you can see you got all your 10 values or 10 tables, and these are your CSV files. You can click on this, you can go to edit, and you can verify your data here. You can see this is all your data. Okay, so this is your data. You can go and click on other tables also to find out the data. So this is how we have moved our, or we have copied our MySQL data to your ADLS by using a ADF pipeline. I hope you got a clear understanding on this. And if you remember, we are solving a project. Yeah, so we have been solving this. Now we have moved our data from MySQL to ADLS using ADF. Now your data is in your ADLS. You need to start using Databricks to move your data from data lake to Databricks database, that is called as a data lake, and from there we are going to connect it to Power BI. I hope you understood this, guys. Understood the first part. Let us focus on the second part. Thank you for watching, guys. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please subscribe to my channel. Keep learning.